During World War II, while Nimitz's fleets were island hopping up the Central Pacific, what they would do is get to an island and they would send some men ashore, establish a foothold, and then just start sending in more men and more supplies. And he did this, from Tarawa, Tinian, Guam, Saipan. He kept on going and going. And that's what the Allies did during Normandy invasions also. They sent a whole lot of men over there, established a foothold, then put some supplies in there, and kept on sending men and supplies on there until Germany and Japan, they had no way to counter it. So that's what we need to do. We establish a foothold. That's what we've done, actually. We've established a foothold with the Dharma, and that's in our lives. And then we allow that foothold to start expanding outwards, and hopefully we get so much better at it, and we spread it out to our entire being. And then we continue to learn and grow in the Dharma so that we can eventually learn how to direct the path to awakening, even at our death. And death happens to everyone. And I remember sitting in high school and we were learning about reincarnation. And I remember thinking to myself, I really wish I could believe in reincarnation because it seems so much safer than what I had been taught. You get one chance, heaven or hell, for eternity. And it's like, that's not fair at all. But of course, I was confused about what reincarnation was and what rebirth is. So very, very basically, and don't hold me to this, rebirth is where you have a soul, you do not have a soul that goes from lifetime to lifetime. But in reincarnation, you do have a soul that goes from lifetime to lifetime. And somewhere between 30 and 45% of the humans on this planet right now believe in reincarnation or rebirth. Take your pick. So recently I've read a book called Life After Life by Dr. Jim Tucker. This tells the story of many instances of young children remembering previous lives. And these children are usually very, very accurate. Well, some are and some are not, but usually they are. And they also have birthmarks. Some of them have birthmarks that they remember from a previous life that they were injured. And they're, like I said, they're very accurate sometimes. Most of them lose their memory after the age of 7. But from 1.5 to 7, there are a lot of children out there that do actually remember these lives. And if you think about it, with the Tibetans, the Tulku system is exactly the same way. And the Dalai Lamas are exactly the same way. So rebirth falls in line with this. Now the second Dalai Lama was named Gunden Gyatso. By all accounts, he was an extraordinary child. He spoke in song of his previous lives, expressing the wish to return to a monastery called Tashi Lungpo to all who would listen. It's recorded that when he was 3 years old, his mother scolded him and he said, "Don't get annoyed with me or I won't stay. I'll go back to Tashi Lungpo." Soon after that, a delegation came from Tashi Lungpo, and it said the child manifested extreme delight in their appearance, greeting each of them by name and relating to them as if they were old friends. And even our own Dalai Lama, when he was 2 years old, a search party was sent out by the Tibetan government to search for the incarnation of the Dalai Lama. The leader of the party was Khenchen Rinpoche, and they figured out where they might find the Dalai Lama. And he disguised himself as a servant and went into the house and observed the Dalai Lama the entire night. And it said that the Dalai Lama looked at him and said, "Saralimpa, Saralama, Saralama." And the Lama, Khenchen Rinpoche, is from the Sara monastery. So he went away, and then a couple of days later came back with several items that had belonged to the 13th Dalai Lama and several items that had not belonged to him. And in each instant, the new Dalai Lama picked out what had been the 13th Dalai Lama and said, "It's mine, it's mine," every single instant. So how can you explain this without some form of rebirth? Granted, there are some Buddhists who do not believe in rebirth. But just between you and me, Buddhism makes a heck of a lot more sense with rebirth or reincarnation. So I'm going to assume that what the Buddha taught about rebirth is correct. Having said that, where are you going to be reborn would seem to be the next logical question. You see, there's no guarantee that you will be reborn on Earth. There are approximately 6 billion Earth-type planets in this galaxy alone. And there's said that there are up to about 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. You do the math. And those are just Earth-type planets with oxygen and water. But let's consider this. There is a creature on this planet that does not need oxygen or water to survive. Now you open up possibilities to be reborn on worlds too numerous to even be comprehended. But you want to be reborn on Earth, because there's one thing here that you can get to help you get out of this cycle of rebirth. And that's the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma. Right here, right now, we have the opportunity to use the foothold of the Dharma that we've acquired to move us closer to the realizations that is going to help us to get out of this cycle of suffering and rebirth. But first, we need to practice in order to acquire a fortunate rebirth. One of the characteristics of a fortunate rebirth is that a Buddha has appeared and taught the Dharma, just as Shakyamuni Buddha did for this planet. So we have our foothold, and we have a fortunate rebirth at this time. But it's up to you to make the effort for this to continue wherever you end up next.